Who do you think should regulate crypto? Do you think that should be its own division? Do you think it should be the government? Or do you think that should be the SEC? It seems like they're getting somewhat involved.
I think ultimately Congress will make that decision. But if you break down the asset classes in crypto, you have digital commodities, an asset without an issuer, reasonably decentralized, no entity can control it. That'll probably float to the commodities and futures exchange. Then you have digital currency, like Tether, like Circle, a stable coin. It's a crypto token that represents a dollar or a euro or a yen. It's hard to imagine that the banking regulators will give up control over that. They're not going to want a shadow bank to be able to move hundreds of billions or trillions of dollars around without some banking oversight. So I would suspect the FDIC or the Treasury or some banking regulatory organization and FinCEN will be involved looking at digital currencies. There's an aspect of digital currencies that also makes them sort of security-like, because whoever sold $100 billion of digital currency invested it, and maybe they have the money and maybe they don't have the money, right? So if I sell you $1 billion of digital currency and I take your money and I steal it, okay, well, that's a problem, right? So it's so you kind of look like a bank, right? And so I expect probably banking regulators will probably get involved there. Then there's a third aspect, digital securities. It's a token that's being launched by an entrepreneur or by a company, and there's, or maybe Tom Brady coin or something. And if Tom Brady launches Tom Brady coin, obviously Tom Brady has a lot of influence over the value of Tom Brady coin. And if Tom Brady says he's going to issue 10 million and he issues 100 million, then, that's kind of a securities violation, right? So I think that probably at that point, there'll be somebody like a securities regulator. It'll either be there, or maybe it'll go to Consumer Protection Agency. Like if Tom Brady sold you a million concert, or maybe Katy Perry sold you 1 million concert tickets, but then she canceled the concert and she didn't actually give you the money back. Like, who would you complain to, right? So I feel like probably there'll be some Consumer Protection Agency that may get involved in digital tokens that are issued by companies and celebrities. And then if there's digital securities, the Securities and Exchange Commission will get involved. I mean, the big question really isn't, can I issue a token without disclosures and trade on a crypto exchange? The bigger question is, why can't you trade Apple stock on a crypto exchange? Like, here's a company, Apple, everybody trusts. You've got all the disclosures. Why can't I self-custody Apple stock on my mobile phone? Why can't I send a share of Apple stock from me to you on Saturday? Why can't I sell the Apple stock on Saturday night? Right? That's an interesting question, right? But it's totally ethical. It's totally progressive. Why wouldn't you want to be able to do that? And right now you can't. Do
you think you can in the future? Because that's an interesting concept. If I want to transfer you my stock, you're right. I mean, I don't think you can.
So see, the good ideas, the progressive ideas in the crypto universe and digital asset space are the idea of self-custody, ability to transfer peer-to-peer, ability to trade 24/7, 365, ability to write a program that will programmatically trade Apple stock on Saturday afternoon or Sunday night while I'm sleeping, right? These are all very progressive ideas, right? All that innovation has been shut down in the traditional finance market for 40 years. There is no API to trade stocks on the NASDAQ, like that entrepreneur in South Africa can write against on an Android phone, right? So coming back to your question, I think ultimately the question of what's the digital assets framework is a legislative one. And that'll be worked out between the House and Senate and the administration. I think that the question of which agency should regulate it, well, it's really a question of what's the nature of the asset. Is it a Katy Perry token? Is it a security? Is it a commodity? Is it a currency? And then there'll be a question of, well, who regulates the exchanges? Will it be the Commodities Futures Exchange, or will it be the SEC, or will it be somebody else, and will the exchanges be able to trade all these different asset classes? The status quo or the conventional view of the administration last week was the only thing that a digital exchange can trade is Bitcoin, and they wanted them to stop trading everything else. Well, that's going to change, right? That's changing this week. And so when you have the digital assets framework come out, they're going to define all these things, and they're going to define the safe harbor, and then they're probably going to define who regulates what, and there's going to be a political back and forth. I think that what's good for the world and what's good for America and what's good for the industry is, a clear digital assets framework that allows people to pretty aggressively develop digital art, digital tokens, digital securities, digital commodities, digital exchanges, and then all of the mobile software, nodal software, internet networking software, and bot software that actually creates value from these things. That would be good for the world. It would expand, it would grow the industry from 2 trillion to 100 trillion pretty quickly. It would create a lot of efficiency in the civilization and empowerment. But, I was of the opinion that all the prediction markets and all the, remember trade sports, or 10 years ago, people can bet on the outcome of anything. I thought that was a really good idea, and the politicians shut it down. It was like online poker or online gambling. They did shut down a lot of online gambling, and even today, they regulate it. So what's the best idea isn't necessarily what the political system will support. What you could say optimistically, though, is there seems to be a lot more consensus to do something. And I think that the likelihood as of 2-3 weeks ago was nothing was going to happen until after the next election. Now I think the likelihood is something will happen before the next election or before the next administration. And then whether we... maybe we're 2 on the dial of 1 to 10 of crypto adoption. We're a 2, grudging Bitcoin and everything else under question mark. And I think we'll get to a 4 or 5 by the next election. And then probably if you have a very progressive administration, they'll dial it up from 5 till 7 or 5 to 8. And if we have a more regressive, skeptical administration, maybe it'll get to 4 or 5, and maybe it'll creep to 6 over 4 years.